Thank you very much, Mr. President. So we are going to start the discussion, and then we'll ask you two questions. And after those two questions, we will take interventions from the participants and members. My first question will be about Rwanda itself. It is very simple, very simple to ask, probably not to answer. To what extent is the Rwandan model exportable to other African countries?
One, Rwanda is almost on everything work in progress. We are still doing a number of things, still experimenting, but some progress has been made. Now, in terms of that being a model, I suppose relates to what has worked, even in the worst of circumstances, or the adversity we have faced has been so challenging. Therefore, the model we have applied can apply in other places depending on demonstration of where we have come from, what challenge we have addressed, and the outcomes. Now, therefore, it's not the overall model that is going, but except if you pick a few pieces. One piece I have in mind is the model is going to work because it builds on putting people at the center of addressing the problems and involving them. And from there, you move forward. The second piece is if you can change people's mindset. For example, in our case, what we tried to do was, and this is practically a discussion with everybody or people in our society. We would go to every part of our country, we have a conversation with our people, and tell them that much as we have a lot of problems, there is a lot in them that they can bring out to meet these challenges and address them. So we are telling people that, we had been telling people all along that you can't sit back and wait that people will come and help. Yes, many times people have come and helped, absolutely. But why wait for people to come and help, even on things you can do yourself? This is what we have been trying to plant in the minds of our people. This is what I'm talking about in terms of mindset, because apart from other problems we found, there was also this mentality that people are poor, they have no this, they have no that, so some people who have more will bring what they need, they'll bring medicines, they'll bring food. We found actually the country about 45% of our food needs were coming from outside as donations. And we said, no, but we can grow food to feed ourselves. And let's do it. Then we started moving forward. So the model can work anywhere. Not everything is going to work for everybody or everywhere, but overall, the conceptual aspect, the philosophy behind it, can apply in any situation in Africa or beyond. It's about saying, we can do it. what we can't do, then we can rely on friends or partners, and we still can move forward until over time we are able to actually do what we were not able to do before. So I think it can work. And for us, we don't have in mind anything else that could have changed our situation unless we involved ourselves, sought partnerships, sought assistance, but always knowing that this is our responsibility.
A footnote to the same question. Have you yourself been inspired by the experience of Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore?
When we started off with our liberation struggle and the challenges we faced even during and after, we did not even think about that. But as we started rebuilding, we started looking all around us, whether in Africa or beyond. And particularly, we did look at the case of Singapore. Because some of the things we have done have come from us, many other things have been lessons learned from others. How they address their problems at one time or another, with the kinds of problems and the approaches they made, and so that we can also find something in our own. So it was at a later stage, let's say 95, 96. On the margins, when that was ending, that is when we started really looking around to say, what is it that is going to help us overcome these insurmountable, at that time they looked so, challenges. So the Singapore case was very appealing. It was a case of Singapore mainly, it was a case of South Korea. And we looked around. In fact, we looked around for not only development models, but also governance models. In fact, our Constitution is built on patching up ideas from one place. We looked at South Africa, which was also being born at the time, and things they were doing to reconcile the society and approach different things for their development. We looked at some European constitutions, the origins, why things are the way they are. We looked at the US, we went to other places. So we kept pieces of what we thought was appealing, and particularly to address, to deal with our situation. And so Singapore was very appealing in many ways. We looked at how they have approached investments in technology, in application of different technologies for efficiency, effectiveness in things they are doing. We looked at how they invested in their people, in sciences, mathematics, again, different things. And then how doing business, when people want to do business, companies, whether small or medium or big ones, what is it, or making investments, what is it that would be appealing for people to come to Rwanda, especially with that background we had that was not appealing at all? So we had so many things to change so that we can stop being seen as some place where people can't do anything, and created that appeal, but learning from, and definitely the case of Singapore was one of them.
Thank you very much. So all that was my first question. The second question is larger. You served as a president of the African Union. So first, what have you learned from that experience? What have you achieved? What are you proud, I would say, to have achieved during your terms? And would you say also that the African Union is, to use your own expression, a work in progress? And if it is so, progress towards what?
Well, Africa, on one hand, is a place of enormous resources, whether human or natural resources. There's no question about that. So the challenge, therefore, is if you have that on one hand, how do you fail, on the other hand, to have the kind of prosperity, the kind of transformation that you should have given these enormous resources, the statement by everybody that we want to do better, we want to be better, we want to prosper, we want to do this. At the same time, decade after decade, we are a place that can easily be dismissed. So there is a paradox here that we need to resolve. So with that in mind, 1 year is a very short time to do anything significant. So I was chairman for 12 months, but the beauty is that you don't do anything alone. That's where you have to start from. So working with other African leaders and having had all these things in mind that we needed to do to get going, start with the example, the institution of the African Union. How can we get it better, organized better, effectively producing the results that the Africans want? How does it become effective? So we agreed on that we need to pay attention to that. And that was the birth of the reforms that we had to carry out, and the African leaders entrusted me with the responsibility to lead the reform process. But it was really leading the reform process with them, also doing different parts of that process. One thing we achieved, there are a number of things which we achieved partially, even if they are not completed, but at least we got started, and we know where we are standing, and work will continue with other leaders who come after and take the leadership of the African Union. For example, we working with the President of Niger, President Yusuf, we were able to put together the African Continental Free Trade Area that has been created, which is going, and we hope by July next year, is going to be the biggest free trade area in the world. But we are not just thinking about the area. It's not just the area. It's also what we do and where we do what we need to do in the free trade area. How do we, as Africans, trade well with each other? How do we allow free movement of people and goods and services? How do we partner with other parts of the world as a group of African countries in this free trade area? So we've seen that come up. I mentioned in my speech the Peace Fund, which means from our own resources as Africa, we could contribute something. We can contribute in the area of prevention of conflict, in the management of the conflict that exists. We can't always just be running to other countries that have the capacity and going to the UN and say, no, we help with everything. So we said we can contribute, even if it is 10%, even if it is 15%, we need to contribute. And now the Africans have contributed the fund, which is running into 130 million US dollars. It's a good thing. It never existed before. We have never been to this level. The level was like sometimes 10 million or even less. So, and then there is is in place another chairman of the African Union. We always hope everyone who becomes the chair helps cover another area that needs to be covered.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Now we are going to take a few questions. Renaud Girard, whom you know, will be the first one.
Mr. President, I'm very happy to meet you again. First time I met you in the bush in the north of Rwanda, in a place called Mulindi. And after that, you took the power and you are ruling Rwanda for the last 25 years. You have been able to maintain peace and to develop in an extraordinary way your country, in agriculture, tourism, industry, services, and so on. And it's obviously a big success. You have run Rwanda, I would say, with an iron fist, but an iron fist which works. We call that in French despotisme éclairé. So it's a beautiful success. But what will happen in Rwanda after Kagame? Do we have a guarantee that the civil war will not resume?
Yeah, there is the part you started with, which I think is a good thing. You started with all the good things you said are happening. Good things don't happen because you are doing a bad thing. They happen because you are doing a good thing. So that is one. Second, I also mentioned it earlier, there isn't really going to be a situation where only one person does everything. Even in our situation, even with the so-called iron hand you are talking about, that iron hand has its own limits. This is where it starts from and where it ends. Third, the judgment, in most cases, by Rwandans of our own situation from given where we started from and where we are and what has happened in between. One is the most important. Second, it's a fair judgment. It's a fair judgment, fairer than when somebody uses an outsider's eyes to make a judgment about Rwanda or its leadership. Fourth, if I were to go into statistics of what has happened, of people we have trained, young people actually who, by the way, people who were born during and after genocide, that is around 25 years, constitute 42% of our population. Those under 30, now about 32 below, are 71%. These are actually the people who are doing most of these things we are talking about. They have had education, they have trained. We have been sending people outside to go and study with Europe, or there was a program to send massively young people to go and what is interesting is that over 90% of those we send outside come back on their own. There is no enforcement about bringing people back home. They come back home. And they are the ones running the institutions, most of them. Those who have been there recently will have met some of these young people running these things. So the Kagame you met that time so long ago, and you were able to see the Iron Fist. That Iron Fist has passed on to many other fists. There are many young people, men and women, doing their work efficiently. They give results. And that's how I found my time to come here and have a conversation with you. They are doing the rest of the work they have to do. So but my time will come when I have to leave, and these same young people will decide what to do with their country, and will choose from among themselves who carries on the baton.
Well, thank you very much for this answer, which is both precise and imprecise, but that's normal. And I think that, generally speaking, after successful stories, succession is always difficult. That, I think, is a generality we can agree on. So I think...
Let me add
please,
something.
Please.
Even where succession has come so rapidly, and where success has been across the world, there is no guarantee that things don't go wrong. Yeah, we can talk about cases if you want. Yes, we have had rapid succession, and we still have not benefited from that, if it has any benefit from that. We see it, by the way, from across the world, whether it is the developed world or middle, the kind of, not the undeveloping world like ours. But that's another story for another conversation.
Thank you very much. So I saw several hands. Well, the gentleman to my right, yes, you. I think you is you. Good.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame. Well, my question focuses on the model of development, Rwanda's model of development. Well, you tried to, actually you explained it. Basically, it's people-centered, and then it has also governance model as well, which you took from different parts of the globe. So my question is, what is actually the model? Because there are already known models. Is it the modernization type, which is not, which I understand? Is it the developmental state paradigm or any other paradigm? Because for me, to my readings and my personal observation, Rwanda is becoming a model of development to Africa. I mean, everyone can say it. Even some of them have started to say Rwanda is the Switzerland of Africa, not only the beautiful mountains, but the development as well. So that is one of my my question. The second one is the reform, the African Union reform process. You led the process at a critical stage. Now, well, someone has taken over. So are you personally following it, or, well, I know as a member state, yes, but I mean, the future is your legacy. So what is your involvement in this particular issue? Thank you.
Well, quickly, let me say this. The model, people call it all kinds of things. I'll break it down into some realities. Maybe we see whether that constitutes a model of one kind or another, or a model at all. But I guess there are things that have to be put into consideration. One, there is the role of the state. There is the role of the private sector. There is the role of the ordinary citizen. Some of them organize in civil societies. Now, one has to find the formula that brings these responsibilities together, because it's one country that is being served. So ours, what we have tried to do is to strike this balance in a manner that gives results. The state, how far does it go in delivering the goods it should deliver? The private sector, how does it work together with the state? Or what does the state provide as an environment for the private sector to do what it needs to do? And then on the side of the citizens, the governance part, how do they participate? How do they get involved so that they feel they own what they have? These are the three legs of the stool, if you will, that we have worked on. But centrally, let me quickly also give you an example. When we were dealing with the partners during those years, they were very active in Rwanda, supporting from all the emergency situation to normalization and development. Every time we used to tell our partners that we appreciate the kind of support they give us. In fact, we need more even of it, not less. But we also want to be the ones in the driver's seat, leading our development process. So we had to form a partnership. We said we will decide for ourselves, or if you will, we will even work together in deciding for ourselves. We will tell you everything we want to do, how we want to do it, and we can make you partners. But we have to be the ones to decide. This was as early as 1996, for example. So that in itself is very important, and whatever you call the model, those things have to be there. The understanding of the balance that has to be struck, people at the center, people, I mean the citizens, but also their leaders, working together, and the rest is what you get. On the part of the African Union, I still play a role of continuing the leadership of the reform process, but in support of whoever will be coming or whoever is there as the chair of the African Union after me. And then we report to the African Union General Assembly, and we have the African Union Commission at the center driving the day-to-day responsibilities around that. We have the commission, the chair, and the commissioners, and they participate in that.
Well, I am told by the protocol that we should wind up now. You know, I think the protocol in this case is probably the kitchen, but I will take nevertheless one question, please.
Mr. President, Rwanda has been the country that has the biggest number of female parliamentarians in the world. And I think also that women are positioned strategically very strongly, either in the economy, in the politics. I'd like to ask you whether you saw some real value added on promoting and supporting gender equality, and would you see the link with the success that everybody's describing? My assumption is that there is a link, very strong link, in putting women where they need to be, in a very strong position, and the result you were able to have both in the economy and in the society as a whole. So we would like you to explain to us how the case went about making sure that women's rights is good for both the economy and development as you did it.
Perfect. I definitely, first of all, want to confirm what you've just stated, and then I reback it with these points that will come along. One, women involvement or participation, as you have said, it's either their contribution to the economy, it's also their rights, and then if you look at the numbers, just look in our case in Rwanda, 52% of our population are women. So, I mean, it is basic, very basic. If we were to remove 52% of your population and make it redundant, I don't think it's a very clever move, and I don't think you get anywhere. But if you can also look at many other aspects. When we tried, for example, when we invested in education for women, because women were lagging behind almost in everything, including education, business, and even in the area of governance, they were absent. So we first invested in their education, in fact, their health, their education for women. What is going to be the result? I'll also tell you that in the management of population growth, the rates we have seen year in, year out, Rwanda was growing, the population growth rate was at 3.2%, which was quite high. Rwanda is a very small country geographically. So we have managed to bring down that population growth rate to something like 2.4 from 3.2. What has contributed largely to other elements, including family planning, for example, was education of women. And women being educated, participating in the economy, in doing business, in doing work, public service, or anywhere, started bringing some sense of sanity in the whole economy and society. So there is a direct link and there is a direct benefit, no question. We've seen, so in primary and secondary school education, the enrollment rate in Rwanda is one of the highest, if not the highest, on our continent. About 92% of people who need to go to school access school for the first 12 years. And that is how we brought in women who were being left behind, because with the poor families, If they have girls and boys in the family because of low incomes, they would leave girls at home and take the boys to school. And so we have now made sure that no girl is left behind. Everybody is getting educated. And they perform as well as the boys, in some cases much better. So all of these things can't add up to nothing. They add up to this impressive progress and the results we see in every sector of our society. By numbers alone, raising people, women who participate, by restoring the rights they should have and for their participation in what affects them and what affects everybody else, by improving their health, their productivity in the area of agriculture or in business or anywhere else. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Every case speaks for itself that women should not. By the way, if you flipped it the other way around, if it was women leaving behind men, you would end up with the same poor results. So it has to be the society as a whole being taken care of, and particularly making sure that women are restored right at the center where they belong and as part and parcel of our society.
Well, Mr. President, I think that a good evening is when you can combine in a harmonious way food for thought and food for eating. I think we have reached a good equilibrium tonight. I wish to thank you again very, very much for having come here with us. It was a great honor, pleasure. And I think you have indeed given us a lot of food for thought. So thank you very much. And I hope that it is not the last time that you will come to the World Policy Conference.
Thank you.